Hi, my name's Bob Grinier and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome to Rencontres, Galactiques, a journey review, this 30th of July 2023. So hello, Harry, Simeon Hein, Artifact, Gordon Hot Doherty, Dan Moretti, Tony Gibboni, Corky Goss, D2105K, Henk, sorry you can't stay with us, it won't be so long this one actually. Hello Yin! Yin Gazda is in the house, and hi Riandathal and Rare Condition and Starfish Troopers podcast. And hey! Good day to you. Hello Rhett Horacle. So I will talk about this little owl here a little later on. How it featured in this journey. So what are we talking about here? Well, I had an invite from Yin Gazda, who is on the chat right now, to join her at a, I guess one might call it a UFO conference. She had been to one at the end of last year in Florida, which had about 1,000 participants, and very well organized and so forth. And this one was around about 500. I didn't know that at the time, but what I did know is when she was suggesting we might go, it was basically sold out. And I think capacity was about 500. Now, to put that in perspective, the maximum number I have ever known have gone to a ICCF has been about 500. Moreover, as you will see in some of the video clips that I will share in this very different presentation, I think, there is a very good spread between male and female. It's similarly international, although this is a French conference. It was in France, and it was in French almost exclusively. But there were people from other countries as well, myself and Yin, notwithstanding. So it was a fascinating and, let's say, interesting journey. The experience was interesting also, and I very quickly learned when I was there why I needed to go. I was convinced there was a reason, and one of the reasons was Dan Winter was to be presenting there, and there is an experiment that I want to do with him. Well, actually, I could do it without him, but since he developed the devices that I want to explore this concept with, I would like to have done it with him, and I wanted to introduce the idea to him, see if he had the equipment, and then prepare for this to be done hopefully later in the year. We'll say a little bit more about this, but we'll also say other things later in the presentation. So hi C.I.C. and hi all those that can join us this evening. Okay, so this is in a place called Tours in France, and it's just a 2-day event. It was predominantly focused on a few individuals, and we can look at them now on the website, which I have given a link for in the blog at remoteview.icu. So give me a second, I will bring that up. So the site is in French, but if you go on Google Chrome, you can get a pretty reasonable translation of it. So here we go. Rencontres Galactiques. And you can see a whole bunch of stuff in French here for the Les intervenants. Liste des intervenants donnée à titre indicatif. Okay, so in English, stakeholders, list of speakers given for information only. So the key speaker, it would appear, having watched this event, was one Elena Dinan. I have no idea really who she is even now, but I got a reasonable sense of who she's supposed to be. Apparently she's a contactee. She's an archaeologist. Apparently author of 3 world bestsellers, The Gift of the Stars, We Will Never Let You Down, and The Cedars, and is apparently an emissary of the Galactic Federation of Worlds and various extraterrestrial organizations. Okay, all right. And her speech was really started with a flowchart of, how should we put this, all of the various alien sort of, how should we put this, federations and both good and bad. I mean, there was no definition of what constitutes bad or good. And she went through and listed how there's been a lot of battles that have been going on, and there was a lot of desire to do harm to Earth or something like that, or we were at risk, but don't worry, this faction with their allies got rid of this faction, and then these 2 groups got together, and you know, this is a little bit, how should we put this? When I started this journey, I thought it was pretty much bonkers. Crystal sort of concepts to do with crystals and energy, you know, obviously piezoelectric crystals, but the sort of what one might consider woo-woo on crystals, on meditation, on sitting in the lotus position. As I said, I lived in India for the best part of a decade, and I actually never meditated, and I never sat in the lotus position, not that I can recall, but I saw literally tens of thousands of people that did or that went to India, particularly the place that I was living in, Kerala, for just these sort of purposes. And, you know, I've had to eat a bit of humble pie and come to terms with the fact that these things do have a place in actual reality and metaphysical and spiritual existence, and they are ways to access what I believe is the chi, the spirit, store the spirit, interact with, and so forth. Is someone like Elena Dinan on a whole other level and speaking to Galactic Federation of Worlds and various extraterrestrial organizations? Well, you certainly see these kind of things discussed at various levels. I'm going to cut to the chase on this. My view on these things is I right now am living about maybe 6 hours drive from areas that are embattled in Ukraine. There are people that live in the neighboring country to me who are on the border of Ukraine. And there is real death and mayhem going on with humans and their effects in that country. And it's a terrible tragedy. We've done whatever we could at various points to help with that. And there are hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians currently living and working, and their children, several of their children are in my children's classes at school. So it's very visceral and connected. The discussions around, and I guess my point is here, I still feel really safe in this city. I don't know people in more Western Europe, or maybe in the Antipodean countries of New Zealand or Australia that follow the project, or people in the US or South America or Canada that follow the project, whether they feel a higher sense of stress and impending doom at what is going on in Ukraine, other than the potential for nuclear issues. However, that is within at least our planet. The idea that there is a battle that was raging a number of thousands or tens or millions of light years away, or across the universe, and or even, let's say this is Galactic Federation, let's just say it's within our galaxy. The idea that I should get worried about that when I'm not overly worried about something that, you know, in terms of it directly affecting my family, other than in the energy costs and inflation costs that have come as a proxy because of that. I'm not trying to be callous, but like, if there was a battle going on, things closer to home are a little bit more, how should we say, closer to home. And I guess I didn't feel as impassioned about these battles being won or lost, or who are the bad guys and who are the good guys. But the people in the room really did. They really did. So they've obviously been following that story, and this is great. And someone needs to care. Like if no one cared about low-energy nuclear reactions, or if no one cared about whether John Hutchison's work is real or not, and can it be replicated, if no one cared about the science behind Tesla, I mean really cared, because it doesn't affect their life, then you know, new discoveries or new understandings about the physical, the metaphysical, the world in which we live, and the universe in which we live, you know, wouldn't happen. So good for them. Great that these people exist. If this is a real concern, it may be. But if the battle was won and it's all over, and do we need to worry? And then the question is like, there are other people here. So Jean-Charles, I'll read the English because it's correct. Jean-Charles Moyen and his wife Melanie Charest and David Rousseau. These are apparently this Jean-Charles Moyen and David Rousseau are what are called super soldiers. I tried to get a handle on what super soldiers is, like superhero type soldiers, or like, you know, maybe they have superpowers. I don't know, but it struck me one is a performer and the other one is an actor. Jean-Charles Moyen is listed here as a director, producer of documentary films, expert in martial arts. He was contacted at an early age, then enlisted in secret space programs, and has extraordinary abilities. Okay. And it was something like he can teleport, and the proof of him being able to teleport was his parents once saw him with sand between his toes, and apparently he had teleported back from a beach in some place that he was conducting a battle, apparently barefoot. I don't know. You know, David Rousseau, author of the books Beyond Our World, artist, singer, musician, composer. He has communicated with the higher dimensions since his earliest childhood. And, you know, I can buy that, because something similar has happened to me, but I'm not being out there doing super soldier stuff, whatever that is. He's been participating in secret space programs with Jean-Charles Moyen. Apparently they went to the same classes in this super soldier school. And Melanie Charest is wife of Jean-Charles Moyen, is also a contactee since birth. You know, if you had that common thing in common, it would make sense that you would want to join together, and has participated in secret space programs for missions consisting of supporting and healing human and extraterrestrial children. Okay. So these are, and there's this woman here, Tamarinda Marsan, Knight of the Order of Warrior of Knights of Argatha, Ambassador of Argatha for Europe, and a Master of Teacher of Ancient Schools of Wisdoms of Romania. She was also a Professor of Quantum Physics. Now, I don't know whether it's this woman. I think it is. It's this woman here, Tamarinda Marsan. There's a lot I have to say about this. My experience of what was going on with the people that are interested in Tamarinda Marsan. But first, on the super soldiers and Elena Danan. They were talking about this fantastic abilities, these fantastic technologies, and la 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 la. And it's like, okay, I want to think this might have some truth to it. I really want to think that this might have some truth to it. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. Like, if I was in their position and I realized that there's suffering in this world, and essentially all standard of living comes from the availability of affordable energy. It doesn't necessarily have to be clean. It just has to be affordable and highly available. No economy in the last 170 years has grown without using increasingly more energy, whether that's clean energy or unclean energy, just increasing use of energy. It's basically a worker that enables you to do more work, where you're just controlling, let's say, a machine that's able to do the work of 100 men or whatever. Okay, so my single question would be to them, the next time you are dialed into the Galactic Federation, or the next time you are dialed into one of your super soldiers missions, just say, look, you know, these battles are great. I love taking part in them, and it's great that we're winning, and it's great that you're really looking after us guys. But like, we need a solution to the energy problem that's not relying on chopping up birds, flooding rainforests, producing methane, and all the hydrocarbon business. Just that's it. Just answer this question. How can I produce affordable, clean energy? And bring that back. Teleport there, do whatever you need to do. But like, you know, if they've got all these amazing weapons and all these amazing abilities, like just that thing, just that thing, just bring that back. You know, just like don't send me on another mission. There's people I know and love back home that really need this solved. So, maybe Elena Danan is a contactee. That quite possibly could be. Maybe she has connections. Maybe these are super soldiers. Just show me something that indicates that there is a technology that you have access to that's beyond anything that's reasonably able to be produced currently here by man, and that actually has utility that can solve a major problem. So, I'm not saying in any shape or form that these people aren't who they say they are. But I haven't got enough tangible material evidence to suggest they are. A lot of people can write very good stories. A lot of people can tell very good stories. I'll tell you a story. And it's about our journey there, Yin and I. We were taking a flight from Prague to Paris Orly, and it was a couple of hours late taking off. This means we were going to miss our blah blah car that was going to take us down to Tours, which is the town in central France where this conference was being held about 20 kilometers away. And so we missed our blah blah car. Fortunately, they were kind enough to refund the money, and we had to go to a place called Boissy or something. It's the bus depot in southeast Paris, where we would be able to potentially get a number of buses. By the time we arrived there was basically one bus going to Tours, and it was on an aggregated bus stop, which was, I think, 66, 67, 68, 69. And it was leaving at 9:45. So we arrived at this bus stop, and we had about, I guess, 20 minutes or something to get a ticket. They could be booked on the application. I had seen that the ticket was costing about 158 euros for the two of us, which was a lot more than the 33 euros we had kind of bargained for to go on the car. And we were speaking to the driver and saying, look, we really need to get to Tours and so on. And so he looked up on his thing and it said 358 euros. And we thought, well, that's a far cry from the 150 something euros that I was seeing. And I said, we don't have that money. We just simply don't have that money. So he took a bribe. We didn't ask him to. He said, like, you can come. And then he wanted 300. He said, we just don't have that. We basically had 150 euros in cash. And so we said, we got 150 euros. So he said, oh, all right. So he spoke to the other driver. There's two drivers. And anyway, so this bus was going to Barcelona, and the idea is it was going through Tours, and we'd be dropped off in Tours, and that's fine. It was leaving at 9:45 from the amalgamated bus stops of 66, 67, 68, whatever it was. So we got on the bus, we paid 150 euros, got on the bus, and it was meant to arrive, I think, at 20 to 2 in the morning. Our original time of arrival was going to be about 9:30 in the evening, but, this was 20 to 2 in the morning. And it got to about 20 past 1, and I noticed that we were heading, like, we were a little bit east of Tours, like about 2 hours drive east of Tours, and this was a bit weird, but maybe they were going slowly. And we were about to come to a town where, maybe if they turned right, they would go to Tours, and I just thought that was just a weird way to be going. But anyway, so I carried on kind of like part snoozing and stuff. And then the next time I checked, it was like, I don't know, it was like 1:35, and I looked at my watch and I go, okay, it's 1:35, and I looked at the Google Maps with the satellite imagery, and we were clean past this town and heading south, and I just thought, oh dear, this isn't going to Tours, is it? This might be going to Barcelona direct. So I tapped Yin on the back of the shoulder. I said, Yin, wake up. I'm not sure this is going to stop at Tours. It's kind of missed it. And I know that part of France. For those of you that don't know that part of France, there is nothing. There is nothing. In fact, I know a person who bought a mill in that part of France that had not been lived in for 700 years. 700 years. Like, it's nothing but farmland, and no one wants to live there, right? So this wasn't looking good. So I went, she said, go and tell the driver. So we went down to the drivers, and I said, we didn't stop in Tours. What's going on? And they said, what? I said, we didn't stop in Tours, and what's happening? And they said, oh, no, this is a non-stop bus to Barcelona. Oh my, no. So we're literally, it was just like total panic between the two drivers, because they had taken a bribe, and we were now nowhere near our destination. And they knew, I heard this big argument between them saying we can't dump them by the side of the road because, like, there's nothing out here. You have to walk many miles to get to a small village, right? So basically, they dumped us at the next overnight train, a petrol station. And we went in there, and my plan was just to ask if anyone's going north. I worked out you could get from this town that we should have turned right at, if it was going to do that, there would be a 5:38 in the morning train, and that would bring us in at about 8 o'clock into Tours. And so, okay, so that's fine. And so we we got off. No one was going that direction, or if they were, they had a full car. So I just spoke to the people behind the counter, and the people behind the counter, I said, look, you know, can you just speak to anyone and say, look, are they going in the direction of Tor or whatever, and can we get a ride with them? You know, we're happy to pay. And I went to the toilet, and by the time I come back, there was someone already speaking to Yin, and he was great. He's been some sort of diplomat to La Réunion. It's a French island off the coast of Madagascar. And, you know, he said, like, I'm so tired. I'm going to Algiers, which is beyond Tours, and it's totally in our direction. And he refused to take any money, and he took us in this car. And we got there, and by the way, we got the drivers didn't want the money that we'd given them, because obviously they'd taken it as a bribe. So we actually got to Tours for €0 in luxury, albeit arriving about 6 or 7 hours late. That is a story. It's a real story. I can tell you it's real. We can prove every single part of it, Yin and I. It's a real story. But the stories that they're telling are far, far more fantastical. But are they real? Are they real? I would love to think they are. So then there is Robert L. He seemed like he was talking about very interesting subjects. Not the most dynamic person in terms of giving the presentation. Main witness of the book UFOs in France by Georges Metz. And of course, the most famous TR3B UFO video is, I think, above Paris. After 2 years of contact with extraterrestrials, he left to spend 1 year in their secret base located in the Himalayas to participate in a repopulation program on a distant planet. What does that mean? Repopulation of humans? Are they going to be taking humans to go to a distant planet? I don't know. Daniel H. is an engineer, French specialist in Radu Cinema's books on the discovery of a hall of holographic archives under Mount Besigi in Romania, leading to Egypt, Tibet, and the intra-earth, and for which he wrote the prefaces of French versions. Yeah. So, and then Dan Winter. So, like, Dan Winter, we all know and love. And Chris Sassone was talking about, how should we put this? He's done a lot of thinking about UFO propulsion and so on. And, yeah, so you got physics of Nikola Tesla explaining the principle of flight of anti-gravity machines. So, actually, Chris organized the conference, and I think actually he did a very good job. And so that is essentially that. Now, I'm just going to show you a whole bunch of photos. And so, like I say, this is going to be very different. So if anyone hasn't been out to France, this is what Tours looks like. This is the main station in Tours. This is the main tramway in Tours. Is it going to work if I do this? Yeah, main tramway with a few more people. This was my card at the conference. They have some nice eateries there. You know, we didn't eat too badly, Yin and I. This is some Afghani rice dish with, I think, beef in there or something. Now, the conference was at this, I guess it's like a stately home, you might call it. It had an immense queue outside. Absolutely immense. So, you know, there are a lot of people taking this very seriously. Does that mean it's true? I don't know. But there really are a lot of people taking this very seriously. Well, obviously I'm standing by the side of the road here, and that's because I've decided it's probably easier to walk. And so I did walk, and that enabled me to get into the conference basically before anyone else, except this lady. And so this was the conference hall. And it's like some sort of winter garden in the stately home. And this is the outside area with people having tea breaks. This is people coming into the car park. But here's a kind of reaction. So, like, they played the final countdown, and I've had this experience once before. It was some good friends of mine, very long-standing friends of mine, invited me to their evangelical church, and I thought, well, okay, let's go, right? And so, you know, for those of that are, you know, more traditional churches, and they have a more formal kind of, I was Church of England. I knew people and went to services at Roman Catholic churches. This was interesting from this point of view. At several parts in the proceedings, the entire congregation got up and appeared to be in some form of rapture. They're waving their arms around and screaming. It's not a song. They're not singing. And you know, the weird thing was, for a minute, I allowed myself to feel like I was the freak. I'm not saying they're the freak, but I felt a little bit like a freak. I'm sitting down, and literally everyone in the room, which is a big room, is up, screaming and waving their arms around. And okay, this is what they do. Like, I kind of equate this to people like at a football stadium, but you know, you're watching things on the pitch with people with extreme skill interacting, and it's a very exciting thing when potentially your team makes a goal or a touchdown or whatever. It's very exciting, and it's you can understand where you're getting up and screaming. And I do know that through dancing, and you can get into a state of trance, and that actually, obviously, the sound that is being produced, the vibration that's being produced by this action, and the collective desire to do this may create a state of collective consciousness that is beneficial and binds the people together. But honestly, I felt like a freak. I did. And I felt the same for the second time in my life when they started playing the final countdown, because I'm sitting there and literally 500 people, less me, stood up and started screaming and shouting, and I'm thinking, what? And Yin described it to me that for these people in this room, the people that were expected to come in fact, they didn't come in at that point. It was funny because it was just the person speaking about the program, Chris Esson. But at that point, there was this like, it was like that rapture. It was like this, and Yin said, well, for these people, the people they're expecting to see are like rock stars. They are like rock stars. And so that kind of makes sense, you know. You're kind of sitting in an auditorium, and I don't know, your favorite pop star or rock star comes out, and you just get to your feet and you scream and you whoop and you cheer, and you know, you get into the songs and whatever. I've been that. I'm sure many of you have. And so it kind of makes sense in that way, but maybe it's because I'm like, I don't know who these people are. So for me, it just seems a little bit odd. But it did feel like that first impression of this kind of thing in an evangelical church. So that's it. And so like I can show you. It's like this. I mean, everyone is screaming and shouting and clapping. And what you can see from this audience here is a very even spread between women and men. If anything, I would say there was more women than men, but you know, it's really about 50-50, and a good range of ages as well. I wouldn't say there was anyone young, you know, under 20 in there. I really didn't see, maybe this little kid here, but the vast majority were, you know, middle age to older age. So, you know, is it people in older age attracted to this because they, you know, they can do that? They've seen all of the nonsense of normal life and they want something a little bit more interesting going on. This is eating their food. They had 2 food trucks there, obviously a crepe truck, and people would eat around the area here. So what the one food truck was doing, actually rather delicious if pricey burgers. Now, so you kind of felt a little bit like this was cultish, but only necessarily, as Yin put it, like when you think of it like they're rock stars, then maybe it's probably as cultish as, you know, worshipping some very good performer. And so that kind of made sense. But then it comes down to the followers of this Romanian, I think it is, this former nuclear or physicist, or this physicist. They, how should we put this? They wore these robes, you can see, and the robes had these blue emblems on, and every one of them had white hats, white coats, white trousers, even white shoes. They were very well dressed, and they were from all over the world. They were from all over the world. And you know, I can show you here. They were the biggest group by far at the conference here. They all took the last quarter or so of the auditorium, and actually they brought the translation along. The people doing the translation. I have other photos of very, very high quality of this group, but you know, I was marveling these people, and someone was saying that this woman that they follow, they kind of think she's a little bit, well, this was what I was told, they kind of think she's a little bit, how should we put this, saintly or something like that. She's got like that kind of aura about her. This is, as I said, what I was told. And let me see if I can get the window up that I want. So yeah, this Tamarinda Marson. So the emblem that they had, it was like a shield. And she's wearing her white regalia here. So they had these white uniforms. It was fairly flexible, but it seemed to have to be white cotton. Most of it was white cotton with gold flashing. So Knight of the Order of Warrior of Knights of Agatha, Ambassador of Agatha for Europe, and the Master Teacher of the Ancient School of Wisdom of Romania. She was also Professor of Quantum Physics. Okay, so I couldn't help myself, and maybe I'm a horrible person for doing it. But at one point, I kind of walked up to two of these guys. I said, you know, it was in a break, and I asked, you know, where you're from in French, and then I asked in English again, and they said, oh, we're from America, and they were from two different places in America. I thought, okay, so it is a mixed bunch here. And I said, you know, I have to ask, are your dry cleaning bills really expensive? Because like all of that white cotton, it's got to be terrible to get stains out of. Deadpan, absolutely deadpan. And to give them credit, they did smirk and laugh a little bit. And they said, yeah, okay. I said, couldn't you just ask your leader to choose a more practical color for your uniforms? Anyway, it sparked a little bit of a conversation, not much, but you know, the weird thing was I couldn't work out whether they had earpieces or what. But part of the way through this conversation, I think even as they were talking to me, they both just turned and moved away. It was surreal. It was totally surreal. I've never experienced anything quite like it in my life. And then they all kind of like, they moved around as a block. To give them credit, they were the translators. So they had brought a traduction service in French, translation service, and they had these headsets. So in the second day, we didn't have such good seats, but Yen and I could walk around the garden. So here is Yen. I'm not going to show her front because she's very modest. And so we could have these earpieces in, and we could walk around the garden. And unfortunately, they were bored, I think, on the beginning of the second day, and they kind of like walked off and weren't available for, translation. But it was very convenient, the translation. So here you can see you might have seen these at conferences. So on channel 1 we had English, and so I could walk around in the breezes and so on, right? So Metal Gear Mark III is asking, so no free energy devices were shown off during this meeting. It's not that kind of thing. It's kind of like these people that are in contact with these other people, and I'm gonna add on to my blog the speech that Elena Danan gave at the end, but it was a bit freaky. It was a bit like, there are people in this room and they've come so far, and we're really proud of you, and you're nearly there, and you've learned all this, and so on. And it was like, could be talk. I said, turned to Yin. I said, could be talking to anyone, if the boot fits type thing. So that was So that was me without the traduction device, and that was me with the traduction device, the translation device. So it was a bit weird. Now, let me see if I can get some other photos of these people, because they had this weird habit, like in every break. And it's not that weird in France, but it's weird to me, I guess. Let me see if I can find it. So, like I said, this would be a different one. Give me a second. Okay. Put those in a different directory because they're too big. Okay, let me see how we do with this. So, this is us standing around in the garden. Okay, and here are these white guys walking around, and the weird thing is like they all started smoking real tobacco products. I'm not talking about vapes. Maybe I'm going to spot one here that has a vape. But like you got cigarette, like cigar. Okay, it's France. Everyone in France smokes, right? That's the kind of thing that people say. But as I'm looking at it, they've got all these blue cloaks that they leave on there, and it's like sweltering hot. Here is the emblem of the Marsenan. So they have this shield on their uniforms, this Marsenan shield here, like woven into their overall here. And, I couldn't help thinking, I don't know if anyone's seen this, but it's like, it's I think it's an HBO documentary called The Leftovers, where something like 2% of the world's population die for some reason. No one knows why. They disappear rather. They just literally disappear. And there are these group, which is like a bit like a cult. They don't say anything because they are the guilty remnant, and they all wear white and they smoke the whole time. And it's like, it was so surreal. This was like a big cult within a big cult, a bigger cult. Like, so it was so surreal. The woman's a quantum physicist. Apparently she's an ambassador and she knows the secret technologies of the Romanian people. Okay. Okay. Show me them. Okay. I don't know. Maybe all these people wearing these outfits and smoking like it's their last. I mean, look, it's just the clouds of smoke coming up above this thing. It was so surreal. It was so surreal. Yeah, but you know, each to their own. I'm happy for people to choose their own path through life. You know, there's no right and wrong. But I was here really to see Dan, and I knew I had to come for that reason. And Dan gave his first presentation, his very first presentation. We're in what we affectionately call in England franglais, which is like French and English mixed together. And it was so cute. It was so cute. I got a bunch of photos here, and I got some videos as well. It was, and the wonderful thing is he had some prepared speech as well. And every time he hit a word that spelt the same in English and French, he said the Americanized pronunciation of it. But he did a fantastic job, given the time that he had, because Dan always has a lot to say. And it was a real pleasure, and it was with great humor, and he took it with such great humor. His first presentation in a different language, so yeah, it was a wonderful experience, to be honest. So let me see if I can find. There's a bunch of video clips here, I think. So I'll do that differently. Give me a sec. Okay, so these are some of the chaps that were the speakers, I guess. So Dan and the super soldiers and the super soldier's wife, and other pictures. This is the Galactic Federation emissar here. Looks pretty normal person to me, and that's how you would hide someone in a society. So maybe this is what a super soldier looks like. Yep. Apparently. And this is Chris, who did a fantastic job organizing the conference. Not an easy thing to do with 500 people. I guess he was under immense stress. Yeah, so there we go. So actually, what happened was, one of the first people, and I have to give credit to Yin, she is absolutely wonderful at organizing and connecting people. Once she's identified people that need to talk to each other, she's good at getting them together. Really, what a pleasure to work with someone like Yin, really, honestly. And so she didn't know, but she thought I needed to speak to this woman. She didn't know what about, but she's called Brigitte. And here she is with one of the other speakers here. And apparently she has been painting. She's an artist, and she's been painting many of the royal families of Europe throughout her career. And she's retired because she has another special interest. And when I started speaking to her, she then admitted that she was the, I think, European ambassador or the Spanish ambassador for the world's greatest pyramid, the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia. And so this was a bit of magic for me. She knows and has worked with, to a great degree, I forget his name now, people in the chat can probably comment and I can put it in the blog later, but the guy that discovered it. This is something that I know I needed to go and see. We hit it off incredibly, absolutely incredibly. She's a very, very free thinker, very intelligent, has very many interesting stories to tell. And if, I said, like, we've got to go to the pyramid. And so, like, she knows the person that discovered it, has a long-standing relationship with them, and is the ambassador for it in other parts of Europe. And so I very much look forward to going with her at some point to see and try and get the best material I can for you guys on the Pyramid of the Sun, and to try and get some grasp of whether and how it relates to the broader picture of these technologies. So that for me was the absolute surprise on the first day. And then in the evening of the first day, is it the evening of the first day? Maybe not, but is it right? Possibly. Anyway, I got a chance to have a brief meeting that, again, so this is me and Brigitte here. With the only thing I know is that I don't know anything. And she's talking about this device here that some German guy invented, and she was talking about how it creates a torus field, and there's various different sizes of them, and how it connects with the ether and so forth. So that was all very fascinating. Unfortunately, the German guy has recently died. And then I had an opportunity to break bread and have a impromptu lunch with Dan Winter, and we just talked on a human level to start with, and wonderful to have a one-on. He shared his food with me, which was great because, like I say, the food was a bit pricey, and I think this was on the second day and wasn't really available at this point to us. And anyway, we stole this opportunity, and it was very nice. And then later on, in the evening, after all of the events had happened, and Dan was actually very tired, but we had a meeting, and during the day, I had been giving to those parties that were interested a little overview of some of the work that we've done with the MFMP and so forth. And there was this woman at the back of the room who, throughout the conference, was furiously taking notes. And during about 20 minutes in this lunch break, after I'd started giving a presentation, she came over and said, "Look, do you mind if I join you?" I said, "No, this information is for everyone, so come over." And so I was, filling her in on bits she might have missed, and then taking the thinking forward. And she said, "Look, I've got other duties or whatever. I need to do them, but could I take some contact details where I can find more information about this, Dan?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I gave them the contact details, and she went and did her other things. And then I'd been presenting to Dan for probably maybe, and Brigitte, for maybe about, so this is Dan here and his lovely wife, which I don't know whether I should disclose, but they are recently married, and Brigitte. And so I'd been presenting for about, 40 minutes or an hour or something. And this Dan had popped out of the room, and he came back in. He says, "Bob, is it possible that I may introduce you to someone who is here and could be interested in what you're discussing?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, more the merrier." So he introduced him, and I blurred him out because I don't know his willingness to be on camera, as it were, at this stage, or at any stage. But apparently he's a representative of the European Union who was there monitoring the event, and behind him was this, what I could only describe as a stenographer, who came in to take notes. So he introduced himself as a representative and so forth. So he started, you can see him here and here, and at this other angle. And he was talking about the fact that he was... I talked about the fact that the project had replicated Chelani and in the early part from 2012 to 2014 or so, 2015, and that work had in part convinced the European Union to provide funding to universities and institutions and private companies in Europe to do this research. And then as a part of that, and I gave some representations through a third party that went before Congress, and that played potentially a role in funding in the US. And I said, so but we're an open organization and stuff. And so he said, well, look, I can get all of these dignitaries together. And he started reeling off a load of different people in the European Union that he could gather together. And I said, you don't need to tell me all the names. It's not that important to me who these people's roles are. What's important to me is that they are willing to listen and maybe to consider the validity of the information. And so he suggested that he then asked, would I be willing to come to the European Union and give workshops for these various people? I said, yep, sure, why not? So let's see if that happens. I don't know whether it would happen. It would be great if it happens. To be able to, now that we have experiments that are both, in the case of the wind hex, they're being done in the European Union by Tony Gibboni, and they are potentially going to replicate a phenomenal process. And also the work that Henk is doing. Henk is looking, and I'll do a review of where the MFMP is doing various things, but Henk is looking to make a 4-stroke version of the GEAT to work in that direction using an old 4-stroke engine. And Artifact in Germany has been rehashing the work that was done by Me356 and Brian Alveston and Alan Goldwater and also Echo in Italy on the MFMP's Python-based and T7 Pro lab-jacked data acquisition and live data presentation system that we've used in our presentations, our live experiments, for replicating the Neil Gould experiment. So he's doing that in Germany, and Alan is preparing to run some new prepared meshes with our Canadian assistant Skip in California. So there's a hell of a lot going on right now, and with also the Ultra experiment and the HHO data, we have a really strong, convincing argument to be able to present with experiments that could reasonably be done by half-competent people, that just with a bit of willing. And so it would be great to be able to get into the European Union and present this information firsthand, rather than in the past where I've always been doing it through an intermediary and hoping that they present the information in a clear way and are able to answer questions that are coherent and get the information across so that they know in their own mind that this is real. I think that's going to be very important. So I'm happy to see if that can be actioned and delivered. If it is, it's a fantastic opportunity to step change the appreciation for the work that you guys have done in researching this, in the work that all of the various researchers like Matsumoto and Neil Gould that have done and passed away, and Ken Shoulders, these people, these legends, and also John Hutchison. So and there we go. So this person here on the right is this stenographer, and so she came in and she was writing all kinds of notes also. So I think these two are connected. She was the note taker, he was the sort of diplomat, and so forth. So there we go. It was a fantastic session. I think we lasted about 3 hours, and at the end of it, Dan Winter said, look, I have a YouTube channel with about 55,000 subscribers. Would you consider coming on and doing a presentation and stuff? Yeah, absolutely. So being able to reach out to Dan Winter's connections would be fantastic. Prior to that, I'd said there is a potential experiment based on something that happened in California. And I will go into this at a separate time, but I want to first, because it involves Dan Winter's, some of Dan Winter's past products, that I want to announce it first on his channel. But essentially, through one donor, has made it possible for me, and because the Prague organization that has the large format SEM has made it available to me on Tuesday this week, I will be going to Prague. And when I was with George Hathaway in Toronto in December last year, and that's not something that can happen this year, and I'll just leave that there. But he gave me 2 samples. One sample I know John had been desperate to have a real analysis and data shared of, and that is the chips, which you can see here from the stepped cylindrical billet that had fallen off. So you might recall a video he did many moons ago where he's showing these fragments that have come off the end of this billet, and that these he said that George Hathaway had some of this, and he said that I think Inventor 3 had some of these parts. But anyway, George very kindly gave me some of those bits, and I have them here, so that will be done. It will be initially, it'll all be part of the materials for Mr. Possible, but I do intend to put it for subscribers into remote view at some point. That means it's always accessible to people that want to go behind the paywall, as it were. It will be in the book, but it's a reward for those people that I can announce today that I have 100 subscribers now on remote view, and although I've basically hardly ever published things behind the paywall, and it's all of the open research has been out the other side of the paywall, and ultimately everything will be outside of the paywall. That is my nature. For those people that will be supporting the book production, those people that are already subscribers, I will publish that. I will publish some things outside, but anyway. The other section here is a piece of metal section that I asked him to give me because of the nature of the things that I photographed and used microscopy or very high macro photography on. And it's a cylindrical section, a piece of metal. And I have a suspicion that it might not be made of aluminium, or it might be made of a different alloy of aluminium. But I'm gonna test that. I'm also going to test the map of the pyramid, the cardioid infarction sample, because it's on the large stage. And if the Czech Post get it to me, another very special John Hutchison sample. So it might be an incredibly interesting day that comes out on Tuesday. The data that comes out. I'm going to look at some stuff that I got from Henk, like one of those samples, the aluminium samples that were in his domed sacred geometry based inspired structure. Depending on what happens with this, I will want to be going to Perpignan probably between the 10th and 14th of December, when the alignment between the center of the universe's the center of our galaxy's black hole is aligned with the Earth and Betelgeuse, as per our Chelani replication and as per the work of Joe Parr. Ideally to do it in those few days. And so if it works, there's no guarantees in this, but the only thing that you can guarantee is that if you don't try it, you're going to fail because you don't try it. But if it works, it will 100% prove things that were stated by Tesla and recorded in Jerry Vassilatus's book Secrets of Cold War Technology, and it will also 100% certainly verify the work of John Hutchison, the findings of John Hutchison, or principal findings of John Hutchison. So there's no guarantees in this. There are risks, but no pain, no gain. And I think it has to be done. And when you see the full story that I will present in theory on a podcast with Dan Winter, I think it will be very exciting, but like I say, there's no guarantees, but I have to try it because I've got a bit of an intuition about this one. So there we go. So, you might find the thing you're looking for in the most unexpected of places. So as I said at the beginning of this, I had no idea what would come out of this other than that I needed to see Dan Winter, and there was no guarantees that I would be able to see Dan Winter, but I definitely did get to spend a significant amount of time with him and strike up a huge rapport, and and be able to show him things that support a lot of things that he has said in the past, but the opportunity to potentially work with him. And not only would it be verifying Tesla and verifying John Hutchison's work, it would also be showing that some of Dan Winter's thinking has real merit in terms of Ether control. And so it's going to be a win-win-win-win-win. Or not, but you've got to try. Okay? So that is a huge win with Dan Winter, his lovely wife, Brigitte, the opportunity to go and see and get right inside and into the depths of the world's largest pyramid, so claimed, will be a wonderful opportunity, and you will hear the outcome of that. And also the opportunity to share this information that we have all been learning together these past 5-6 years, based on hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, of recorded technology and observations of the way that nature works, to be able to present that in workshops, not just a 20-minute presentation like I have at C.I.C, but in workshops where maybe I can say, look, you want to come for a day, let's do a day. You want to do 2 days, you want to do 3 days, let's do that, right? For those people that want to walk through the process, I can do that. I can, I can talk all day. So the opportunity to do that for people in the European Union and get them up to speed, because we need solutions now, and we need to understand and try and deliver these potential that can come out of understanding this to a greater degree. And, the European Union, more and more countries are considering nuclear or small nuclear reactors to solve the energy problem and gain some resilience and some redundancy and some geopolitical assurance in their energy supplies. And if they are going to be using, doesn't matter whether it's thorium or molten salts reactors or whatever, or traditional reactors, they are going to definitely need a good means of dealing with the waste and making those things safe. And I believe that we have understanding that can deliver that. And so that for me is like all of the weird stuff, all of the cult within cult, the stuff of like, do these people, these super soldiers, are they real or are they performers like they say they are? I mean, like, I can show you the video, but like, it doesn't really add anything. Jean-Charles Moyen, middle is just a translation of Moyen. He's a director and producer of documentary films, and in this conference, he presented the first 10 minutes or a 10-minute summary of a documentary film that he made about his experiences. Maybe with David Rousseau. And at the end of the conference, David Rousseau got up and did a rap song. So, like, one is a director and he's an actor in his own documentary. And so, like, whatever. What I know is, out of this event, I knew I needed to go. Yin encouraged me to go. It's a nice group of people that, to me, it actually doesn't matter what things are wrong about. It doesn't matter if you're wrong about something. I've said this, it doesn't matter if I'm wrong. It only matters if I'm right. It doesn't matter if they're wrong in maybe 95% of what they do or misguided. It's that they are the kind of people that are looking into the channels and the ways of thinking and the people that may provide the answers that many people are looking for. So it doesn't matter if you're wrong most of the time and most of the thinking. If you are the person that's in the right place at the right time because of the way that you are willing to expose yourself to that, and you find the answer. But in my case, it was a massive win with the pyramid, win with working with Dan Winter on the specific experiment I want to work with and reaching out to his audience and bringing them into the fold of understanding, and also a win with the European Union. This possibly is the most productive event I have been to since I went to Sochi in 2018 to present the first third of O-Day slides to the Russian research community, the cold nuclear transmutation and ball lightning community. Absolute thank you so much. Thank you so much to Yin. What an amazing start. An absolute pleasure to travel with. And even, it wasn't just on the way out. When we're leaving, the bus to tour broke down just before we were meant to get on it. It wouldn't start, basically. And the bus driver, she started bursting into tears. And 50 minutes later, we still had no way to get to the airport. So, and you know, we found a way around it. And that's fine. But, you know, some people, when you're traveling with them in that kind of situation, it's 3:30 in the morning, you're stuck in the middle of nowhere at some gas station, and they would just literally flip out. But she didn't. Cool as a cucumber, and a real pleasure. So thank you very much to Yin Gazda. And I can see why she's been a good documentary filmmaker. And I can see why, because she's, how should we put this? She's always connecting the right people. She's listening. She's got an ear to the ground. She's reading. She's preparing. And it's a real pleasure to work with her. So thank you very much, Yin, for everything at the conference and for the potential that we might collectively yield out of it as a community. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any questions. I know this is a bit of a different one. This is more about like what the project can collaborate with new communities. And you know, I think, you know, you got to grow. If you're not growing, you're not growing, as someone used to say in marketing. If you're not growing the people you're working with, and if you're not having other inputs, because all of these people could have fantastic inputs that provide the answer. I remember I saw a documentary the other day, and it was like, or maybe it was even the UFO meetings in Congress. Something someone said very recently, or they were saying something like, we didn't say anything in public about what we knew, because if we did, then we might give the answer to the other side, the bit that they're missing. And like they might know everything, but the bit that we know, right? And that's the whole point about being open, is that, you know, we haven't got all the answers, but I'm constantly amazed at how much you as a community know, because you've got collectively millions of man hours of thinking about this, and you may not have thought a piece of information is important until you realize it's the piece of information that needs to be known at that time. So yeah, right, so I'm gonna see if there's any questions, and if not, then it's a short one tonight. So did they say if any EU reps are going to ICCF 25? Standish, there are always EU reps going to ICCF 25, and there's always spooks. Like every single time. Like I say, I've said this in the past, there's often about, I would say, 20% of people that never seem to do any experiments, never seem to write any papers, but they're all standing in corners listening to people. Bob, we'll suggest you to demystify Sci podcast, a small channel, but very open to ideas and ask good questions. I like good questions. I like to be challenged. The only way you can really improve your understanding and check and balance your arguments is to have good questions. You know, if the data doesn't support clear answers, then you need to reevaluate the data or readjust your argument. So, okay, great, that would be wonderful. People can use stones for various purposes. This is Lizicam Atat. People can use stones for various purposes. As a child, I used them to test the strength of my neighbor's windows. Very good. Yes, very good. That's that is an experiment, in fact. Okay, so right, I'm gonna see if there are any questions above. If you've got some questions, write them now. I'm going to look to see if there's anything above. So Cross Signal says, sounds like a great weekend. It was very tiring, very exhausting, but ultimately very, very productive in a connections basis weekend, yes. So Riandathal says, Bob, when you're in Bosnia at Visoko, make sure to ask to see any artifacts that have been excavated. Yes, that is my key thing. I'm not really interested in seeing mud so much. I am interested in getting inside and seeing if I can feel things. But yeah, the artifacts, being able to interpret. I think some of the big stones that are under there had runes on them, but it's the artifacts that really, they're going to tell a story if they have them. When I was there as an archaeology undergrad in 2007, there were none. Okay, that's interesting. So RG says, I would like to know more about brilliant light power. That will be a subject of a different conversation. When I last talked about brilliant light power in a presentation, they were the first and only people to use their lawyers to ask that video to be taken down. They're famously litigious. In them, oh, okay. Yes, Gordon Doherty is talking about Rossi's technology. That's Andrea Rossi's, that it is coming up, and that's one that will be interesting. So yeah, we burn stuff. Thank you. He says, well done, Bob, for going through this for the community. You know what? When it started, I'm like, it's this kids' holidays. They're off from school. I really want to be with my children, but I know I have to come to this, and I know because Yin's asked me I have to come to this, and it was definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. So Bob says, recommend seeing a Land of Chem YouTube channel, vids on Great Pyramid for very good graphics and some new info. Excellent. Thank you, C.I.C. Starfish Troopers podcast. The elites are into some funky stuff. Yes, well, Brigitte, as I said here, Brigitte here, she painted the elites of Europe. And yes, she had some interesting stories. Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay. So, Bumblebee Hive, wonder why an EU representative would attend such conferences. I would not trust them. You know what? You can't go through your life trusting no one. You can be a fool and trust too easily. If he's inviting and it's in an official building and the people are named and they are named people, then and they have particular roles, then I can't see any harm in going there. I don't care whether they think what I have to say is just bunkum or laugh or whatever. I think we're at a point now where you basically have to have been alive for a few years, and you will have already seen that this is there, it's in nature. And the idea that what I can do is I can get them to do the experiment. And what I would like to maybe arrange is for a scanning electron microscope to be there, and they can do their aluminium foil experiment and put it on this scanning electron microscope and see what happens. And I think that will be a very visceral, they'll be able to do science that's far and above what many people have claimed possible. And I think that would be really, really interesting to have that happen. Okay, I'm looking at the bottom. Wonder if that EU guy is Dutch. I don't think he's Dutch. If his name is Chewbacca, I will follow him anywhere he goes. Very good. Was there anyone there called Palpatine? If so, don't trust him. Very good, Gordon Doherty. Gweet Tosin, what do you think of Rupert Sheldrake's work on morphogenic fields? I kind of discussed something in the last presentation which would get close to morphogenic fields. I think it would cascade, and like it's like, I think, is it the 6 degrees of, or 6 degrees of freedom from Kevin Spacey, is it, or something like or something like that? You'll know everyone in the world with 6 degrees of freedom. I think the idea is that if knowledge gets to a certain threshold, then for some reason everyone knows it almost naturally after that point. And I argued that this is because DNA is a transmitter and a receiver, and like, if you can convince 2 members of your family of a subject, it might be harder for you to resist being convinced of the same thing, even if it's absolute rubbish. But also, if it's true, then you might easily be more convinced, or for some reason have an innate understanding of the concepts when they're first explained to you. So this would be something along those. Kevin Bacon, it sounds better, doesn't it? Bacon, of course, everyone loves bacon. Even vegetarians fall prey to the smell of bacon. Yeah, Kevin Bacon sounds better. So like, yeah. So yeah, okay. So any more questions here? Yes, Martin Kemp. I think we could well be in for some more future booms. If the experiment that I want to do with Dan Winter, which by the way he doesn't know what it is yet, he just knows what he needs to have ready for it to be tried. And like I say, I need to understand if the sample from George Hathaway in here, shared to me when I was in his lab in Toronto in December last year, the Hutchison sample, if it is what I think it is, or close to what I think it is, then I think we have a real prospect of doing something very, very special. And I would like to get it on camera from multiple angles, and it will be utterly, utterly, utterly conclusive. But there's no guarantees. It might just be a complete dud. So I've got to try it. I have to try it. And when you know the context of what led me to think about this, you will know that this needs to be tried. So, was the Super Soldier rap song any good? I might have a bit of it. I might share it with you. You can be the judge yourself. I think I've just got the clapping at the end. Let me see what I can find here. Oh dear. Super Soldier rap song. No, there's nothing in that one. Oh dear. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I can show some of Dan Winter's beautiful Franglaise presentation. Due credit to him. So let's see what we have here. So I don't think we have any sound there. Okay, don't know why we don't have any sound, but so I don't think we have any sound there. Oh, okay. We're talking to myself now. That'll be why. What's going on there? Give me a sec. That's Dan Winter. This is Dan Winter's program actually here in his latest venture. So, and this is this woman I think that all of the people are following. This one here. So give me a sec. I will see if I can fix that. Okay, let's see if I've got sound now. No. Okay. Oh, what's going on here? Okay. Oh, I know what's going on. Oh dear. All right, give me a second. I'll fix something here. Talking to myself, that's why. Right, I'm trying to find two things. Here's presentation.
Ici, je dirais que c'est un premier aboutissement, un premier seulement, puisque...
This is this woman.
Je suis très, très heureuse d'être avec vous. C'est seulement que je suis l'inconnu.
Okay, I'm just going to give you some insights here. So that's Chris C.I.C who organised the conference.
Et donc, avant de commencer...
Here's when people go crazy, I think. Maybe, I don't know. This is Dan Winter doing the Franglaise. See you, Oracle.
Aujourd'hui, serve an introduction gentle to the argumented and the numerous illustrations. The science appelle implosion, fractality, et plus précisément, effondrement de la charge. Charge collapse en anglais, en français, effondrement, oui, effondrement de la charge. C'est parfait, charge, effondrement de la charge, c'est le cause, c'est le mécanisme de la gravité, de la consciousness, et aussi pour le stargate, pour le portal. C'est tout le mécanisme, c'est implosion, effondrement de la charge, c'est le key, le clé. C'est aussi une démonstration dans the publications scientifique de mon équation figurant dans mon nouveau cinquième livre, plankfire.com. Et c'est l'illustration de la Planck Fire. Je montrais le concept de Planck. C'est le, how do you say, musical key signature. Yeah, the musical key signature de toutes les ondes, c'est la mesure dans la physique. C'est le Planck longueur et le Planck temps. C'est le key de tout.
Stuff of legend. So here they're doing some sort of singing here. Anyway, there we go. That is some funniness that was going on. Maybe there's something here. Yeah, I've got something of the song here. Okay, so there we go. And what's one last little tidbit is that as I was going in to meet Dan Winter and give our lectures, I saw this lovely looking owl just in front of the entrance, and I thought that was very nice because that's our owl that keeps appearing. So there we go. Thank you very much for your time. Just check if you've got any more questions, but basically this was a little bit of an odd one because it was about a conference I went to, not really knowing what to expect. But in the end, the best outcome that one could possibly imagine from something like this came about. And I got to meet exactly and only the people I needed to meet. Exactly and only the people I needed to meet. So thank you very much for your time, and I will see you in the next video.